In this session, we will solve the fixed columns to obtain the buckling load for Euler's equation. So there are certain things that you have to keep in your mind when we compare the fixed columns with the hinged and fixed free. The major difference is the presence of this bending M here is the reaction. This which was absent in the other two questions. That means for the hinged conditions and for the fixed free conditions, this moment was absent. The reason is that when we hinge in a condition, it allows the moment to develop. But when we fix the end condition, we are restricting the moment also. When we restrict the moment, definitely there has to be a reaction, and that reaction is given here. Let us rewrite this as MR for simple words. MR is the reactional moment. Now we are going to do the same thing. We have to follow the same process. Let us say that this is X. So for in the first step, we have to write down the expression for the moment at X, which is nothing but P into Y, which is going to take a negative sign. But apart from this P into Y, we have one more moment, that is the reactional moment, which will be nothing but plus M into R. So in the second step, what we are supposed to do, we have to equate this with EI into d square Y by dx square, which is equal to minus P into Y plus M into R. So when we divide with EI, what we are going, it is going to be like d square Y by dx square plus P by EI into Y equal to M by EI. Now you compare this particular equation with the equation of fixed free columns. We'll do one thing. If you take a fixed free column, then the general expression was something like this: d square Y by dx square plus P by EI into Y is equal to P by EI into A. This was the expression, right? That means the term on the right hand side of this expression should have a P by EI with it, and whatever comes along with that P by EI, that is A, was seen or can be seen in the solution bar. And what was the solution for this? The solution was written as Y is equal to C1 cos mx plus C2 sin mx plus A. So if you want to put an A here, then this particular A has to be supported by an P by EI, or the coefficient should be P by EI. But if by keeping that particular thing in mind, if you look at this expression, we lack a P here because M by EI is there, but we don't have a P by EI here. So what I will do is I will substitute a P on the numerator as well as the denominator, and what I can do is I can use this PEI as M, right? Now this M by P is what? A. So the general equation is going to be Y equal to C1 cos root of P by EI into X plus C2 sin root of P by EI into X plus, in the place of A, we can rewrite it as M by P. So this is how you have to learn by comparing. That is the easiest method to learn all these derivations at a stretch, because these derivations vary slightly from its actual procedure. There are only few terms that comes into the derivation, and some terms leaves, and the general expression remains almost the same. So you have to make some arrangements to substitute like that. So right now we have the general expression. This one. Now next step, third step is the identification of these constants C1, C2. To do that, we need the boundary condition. So what are the boundary conditions for this? It's very much similar to that of the hinged condition, where at x is equal to 0, you have y is equal to 0, and at x is equal to L, you have y is equal to 0. Along with this, since it is a fixed quantity, the last boundary condition we can use here, at x is equal to 0, dy by dx is equal to 0. Dy by dx is nothing but the slope. So this is the, let us consider this as the boundary condition 1, this is the boundary condition 2, and this is the boundary condition 3. Because in previous derivation I have named in some other order. Don't worry, because this is the order that we are going to use, that's the reason. And compared to the previous question, the changes are only very few. So kindly substitute all these. Let us substitute the first boundary condition 1, that means at x is equal to 0, dy by dx is equal to 0. To have a dy by dx, you have to differentiate this y with respect to x, and the dy by dx is nothing but dy by dx is equal to what? When you differentiate this, c1 minus will be there. There will be a root of p by ei will be there. Again, cos will change to sine. Root of p by ei will be there into x plus c2 is there. We have root of p by ei is there. Sine will change to cos. Root of p by ei is there to x. So m by p is a constant. Upon differentiating with respect to x, it will vanish. So this is the expression. Now if you substitute this boundary condition at x is equal to 0, dy by dx is equal to 0, this will become 0. Sine 0 is obviously 0, so this term is going to be 0. Now cos 0 is going to be 1, right? So since x takes the value of 0, cos 0 is going to be 1. So what we have is root of p by ei into c2 is equal to what? 0. Definitely log cannot be equal to 0, e cannot be equal to 0, and I cannot be equal to 0. The only term that can become 0 is the value of c2, which means we can conclude that c2 is equal to 0. So this is the conclusion after the first step. Right. Now we will go with the second boundary condition. Where boundary condition 2 states that at x is equal to 0, y is equal to 0. So if you substitute this equation, we can say that 0 equal to c1 cos root of p by ei into x is equal to 0, plus c2 is obviously 0, so that term will go, which is remaining is m by, what is the value? It has to be m by p. Yes, it has to be m by p. This value will come into action. Now if you solve this equation, what we are going to get is c1 is equal to minus m by p or mr by p. This is the value we are going to get. So we got the constant value as c1 is equal to minus mr by p. Now if we substitute the third boundary condition, the boundary condition 3, that is nothing but at x is equal to L, y is equal to 0, gives 0 is equal to c1, the value is minus mr by p into cos root of p by ei into L plus 0 plus m by p, right? Now if you take it to the other side, we can say that mr by p is equal to mr by p into cos root of p by ei into L. These two will get cancelled out, and what is left with is cos of root p by ei into L has to be equal to 1. Now the question is, for what value of theta cos is going to give you the value of 1. So we know that it's cos 0 is 1, cos 90 is 0, and we can say that for theta equal to, you can say that for theta is equal to 0, 2 pi, 4 pi, like that, cos theta will give you as value as 1. So obviously we cannot use the value 0. We will go with 2 pi. So if we equate root of p by ei into L equal to 2 pi, and if we square it and group it, we are going to end up with p is equal to 4 pi square ei pi. So this is the expression for the Euler's equation for the fixed column, 4 pi square ei by L square. So in the previous fixed free condition, 4 was in the denominator, now the 4 is in the numerator. But the general nature of the equation still remains the same, as pi square ei by L square. So this is how you have to carry out the derivation of the Euler's equation. Actually, this derivation of Euler's equation is very easy. But when you look at it, some textbooks, you find it very difficult because so much lengthy derivations and all those things. You feel more confused. It's very simple methodology, simple way of answering it, simple substitutions. So when you try to study or learn something, it's learned in a more simple manner, so that it will help you to understand the things clearly, memorize things clearly. So we have derived the expression for the fixed columns. This is the Euler's equation for the fixed columns. In the next class, I'll be deriving the last equation for the end condition fixed hinged columns. So see you in the next session. Thank you. Practice this derivation. Bye bye.